A long time ago, a powerful faction got way too greedy mining divine ruins. So, the Guardian's brilliant solution was unleashing a horde of ancient monsters, which to be fair was a pretty effective way to scare off the miners. But these ancient beasts could not survive in the human world, slowly becoming spirits. To survive, they started latching on to unsuspecting human hosts from the shadows. And this brings us to the present, where the Guardian's punishment is still ongoing. Now, the news is just a constant stream of warnings about mutated life forms attacking citizens. And our story kicks off at a rainy downtown subway station, where a sleek, futuristic-looking train is pulling into the platform. Inside it is the usual soul-crushing scene of a packed commuter train, but one guy seems to be completely zoned out, lost in his own world. This is our boy Chinsai, a recent grad just trying to vibe his way through life. Turns out he's got zero talent, got kicked out by his family, and is just scraping by. Standing nearby is a transit security guard just doing his job when suddenly a shadowy monster hand materializes right behind him, revealing a massive drooling beast that has been hiding in plain sight. Naturally, the entire train car erupts into pure, unadulterated panic. And even Chinsai is yelling, though he seems more annoyed than terrified, ripping off his headphones because all this screaming is really killing his vibe. And just like that, the security guard is down for the count. A brutal first casualty. This hulking bear-man monster starts ripping the train car apart, roaring about demolition. And the commuters predictably lose their collective minds at the sight of a real-life mutant, because these ancient spirits possess emotionally unstable humans to create these things. Which explains why this one's on a rampage, and Chinsai finally gets that this is not a drill. At that exact moment, the train pulls into the station, offering a slim chance of survival. But the emergency brake sends everyone flying through the shattered windows, tumbling across the floor in a mess of limbs and panic screams right before the subway doors finally slide open. Naturally, human decency is the first casualty as everyone tramples each other to get out, spilling onto the platform in a wave of pure, unadulterated terror. Left behind is just the grim aftermath of a panicked escape, cracked phones, and abandoned bags. Our boy Chinsai somehow makes it through the stampede, looking a little worse for wear, only to see the monster standing over the less fortunate still on its demolition kick. Now, ranting about flattening graves to reclaim land, which is a very specific grudge. Chinsai immediately deduces the host was some demolition thug who got way too emotional. And after spotting a nearby exit, he starts planning his own great escape. But his conscience kicks in when he sees a grandma protecting her terrified grandchild. So, he decides to play hero, telling them he will lure the beast away so they can run. He even cracks a joke about his totally mediocre track and field career being his main qualification. But as he squares up, a shadowy entity reveals it has been watching him this whole time. So Chinsai starts his big distraction, sprinting past the monster to get its attention, even calling it an idiot just to make sure the oversized brute takes the bait, which worked a little too well as the beast immediately snatches him by the head. Turns out his mediocre running skills were not quite enough to outpace a giant mutant. Meanwhile, the grandma and her grandchild reach the platform guards, yelling that someone is still inside. Just as the monster delivers a bone-crushing blow right to Chinsai's face, followed by a full body slam that smashes him into the station floor. Our boy is left bleeding and dazed while the beast just scoffs at his pathetic attempt. And he finally admits to himself that he might have slightly miscalculated the situation. At least he gets a final look at the people he saved, now safe behind riot shields right as the doors close, leaving him to contemplate his own imminent demise. This little girl desperately pleads with the guards to save the big brother who helped them. But a new commander arrives on the scene, ordering his troops to hold their positions, revealing some kind of dark, swirling energy wrapping around his own arm. Back inside, Chinsai lies defeated, unable to believe this is how his story ends. But he still manages to clench his fist with what little strength he has left, refusing to accept such a lame ending when his life has barely even started. As his consciousness fades, his life flashes before his eyes, starting with his mom calling him a hopeless failure, then jumping to a delightful memory of getting cornered by a bunch of school bullies and capping it all off with a romantic rejection because his life has just been one big win. All that rage from a lifetime of failure comes pouring out with the blood. But even as he is fading, there is a flicker of pure defiance in his eyes. Because for once in his miserable existence, he just wants to actually win something. This Bearman monster, however, is winding up to make sure that never happens. When a blast of golden energy suddenly deflects the attack, sending the beast flying, and a new resolve burns through Chinsai a desperate need to live and fight back. That is when the shadowy entity from before reveals itself as a golden dragon spirit, which dives straight into our boy, flooding his body with overwhelming power. This spirit even has the nerve to greet him like an old pal it has not seen in ages, plunging Shinsai into a weird mental space where he is convinced this is all a dying dream. He chalks it all up to a pretty epic post-death hallucination. But the spirit clarifies that his worthless life is exactly what makes him a perfect host. Back in reality, the monster swings for the final blow, not noticing the change, only for its punch to be stopped cold by a newly armored hand because Shinsai is back on his feet, now fused with the ancient spirit who offers him the one thing he has never had, a chance in the form of raw power. This demolition beast is understandably confused by this sudden turn of events. Right before Shinsai's new form delivers a face-shattering punch of his own, his hands have transformed into razor-sharp golden claws, a serious upgrade, which then immediately shift to a menacing crimson, hinting at the power he now wields. This dragon spirit explains these new claws are basically a high-tech exorcism tool, which Shinsai immediately demonstrates by slashing at the demolition beast, gleefully announcing it is time for some impromptu spiritual surgery. And with one clean rip, he severs the connection completely. This bear spirit is torn away from its human host in a flash of dark energy, leaving the original demolition thug to collapse back onto a subway seat, looking like he just went 10 rounds with a cement mixer and lost. Now, free-floating, the ancient spirit seems a lot less intimidating. So Shinsai gives it a casual hello there like they're old buddies. This spirit, however, is not feeling the friendly vibes at all, now finding itself completely outmatched by our boy's new form. Shinsai plants his foot down just to make it clear who is in charge here before grabbing the spirit and calling it a high-quality snack. Opening his jaw wide to prove he's not just kidding about dinner, he swallows the entire thing in one gulp, looking a little puffed up afterwards, and then lets out a burp complaining about the terrible aftertaste. But his post-meal bliss is cut short by a squad of armored troops storming the platform, who he immediately recognizes as the infamous security department. Just as the cavalry arrives, a wave of pain hits him out of nowhere, and he realizes his new power-up has some seriously inconvenient side effects. This armor fuses to his skin, and Shinsai has a full-blown identity crisis, followed by a good look at his brand-new, very pointy murder mittens. He catches his reflection in the train window, realizing he looks like a final boss, which naturally sends him into a spiral of pure, unadulterated screaming. Meanwhile, the security department just watches, one guy even asking about his cosplay. But these troops are clearly not here to ask for autographs. Shinsai then spots the original demolition thug who is now drooling on a subway seat. And it finally dawns on him that he is the one who put the guy down. His new dragon Parasite pops up to clarify it saved his life, so he should be grateful. And when Shinsai worries he killed the guy, the spirit just calls him an idiot. Having seen enough, the armored squad opens fire with some heavy-duty energy blasters, and our boy's body starts twisting and dodging like a seasoned acrobat, which is when he realizes the dragon spirit has completely taken the wheel. This spirit decides they have overstayed their welcome, firing a blast to make a quick exit. But one of the soldiers lands a tranquilizer dart since they are not perfectly in sync yet. Instead of knocking him out, the dart just makes him feel ticklish of all things. One of the guards reports back that their strongest sedative is having zero effect. So, the commander immediately orders them to switch to the shock grenades. This dragon spirit just smirks, telling Shinsai to sit back and enjoy the show because now that they are fused, this is going to be a whole different ballgame. This soldiers lob a shock grenade right at his feet, hoping to finally put him down. But the dragon spirit just casually bats their bullets away with a flick of its claws, leaving the entire squad baffled that their high-tech arsenal is doing absolutely nothing. With that, Shinsai's new body smashes straight through the side of the train, launching into the sky as the troops below unleash a volley of energy blasts after him. Back on the platform, the security department is left to stare at the absolute mess he made. That is when a new player arrives on the scene, a blonde woman with a very intimidating cyberdog. She is an infantry captain, and she immediately demands a status report on their runaway target. Her subordinate has to sheepishly admit that their extremely agile suspect got away clean. She gives him a look of pure disappointment, basically telling him he is a failure. While her cyber mutt sniffs the still unconscious demolition thug, she surveys the damage. She then randomly complains to her pet that its constant hunching is exhausting to look at. So, the dog promptly morphs into a creepy white-haired dude with glowing eyes, who now crouches before her, looking significantly less like a pet and more like a problem. He slips on a jacket, claiming his animal form is just more approachable, which is a bold-faced lie. Looking at the wreckage, he deduces that a freshly fused spirit like Chin's, I cannot have gone far. This captain tries to recruit him, calling the security bureau useless, but this guy Buong is not interested. He explains that mystics are a different breed and do not really do the whole joining an organization thing. Just as he is about to walk away, though, something makes him stop in his tracks, and he whips around, having clearly sensed a clue that everyone else completely missed. This captain tries to rush him along, but Bufong is busy trying to lock on a Chin-Sai's energy, casually reminding her that actually finding the guy is going to cost extra. With the price settled, he closes his eyes and begins his mystical tracking technique, which apparently involves some dramatic posing and a whole lot of spiritual smoke. His senses immediately connect with Chin-Sai, who is currently leaping across the city rooftops. But as he focuses on the kid's new armor, he starts picking up on something else entirely. Some kind of dark parasitic entity that seems to be latched right onto his back. This psychic connection is clearly taking a toll as Buong starts breaking a serious sweat. Turns out he's getting a front row seat to the massive dragon spirit inside our boy, and the sheer power radiating from it is almost too much for him to handle. This dragon does not appreciate being spied on, letting out a psychic roar in his mind, which sends a wave of feedback that just about fries Bufang's brain, leaving him completely stunned by the raw, untamed energy he just tapped into. This spirit even has the nerve to call his tracking creepy before mentally Bodis slamming him. Back in reality, the captain just watches, probably wondering if she is getting her money's worth. Despite the psychic beatdown, Bufong manages to gasp out that he has found their target. But the captain is a little more concerned about the fact that her tracker is looking unwell. Right before he promptly collapses, looking like he is about to hurl up his own soul. Before passing out, he wishes her good luck with the impressive target and asks for a medic. She grabs him by the collar, desperately demanding the exact location before he is completely gone. Bufong, looking like he just wrestled a psychic ghost, manages to gasp out the target's location. This captain, meanwhile, seems entirely unconcerned that her high-priced tracker is about to pass out. She just turns to her subordinate, a cyborg she calls Flying Squirrel, and gives the order to move, who immediately powers up with glowing red eyes, ready to hunt down their runaway, and then blasts off in a massive explosion of blue electrical energy. His boss just smirks, boasting that when it comes to speed, her guy is simply unbeatable. Across the city, he zips through the urban canyons like a bolt of lightning. At that exact moment, Chin-Sai is still parkouring across rooftops in his new monster form while arguing with the dragon spirit, who helpfully clarifies they are fused for life. Now, our boy's biggest complaint, however, is that he is afraid of heights and getting motion sickness. This spirit tries to justify their escape route, mentioning the sorcerer who is tracking them. But Chin-Sai is completely done with this aerial tour and just screams that he wants down. His internal parasite calls him an idiot for throwing a tantrum in the middle of the sky, which only sends Chin-Sai into an even bigger panic, completely losing his composure. And just like that, he loses his footing, flailing wildly as he plummets towards the ground. He crashes down into a narrow alleyway with a very loud, very painful-looking thud. Picking himself up from the pavement, he groans that the landing definitely hurt. This dragon spirit scolds him, explaining the armor broke his fall, but is now offline for repairs. Back in his normal clothes, Chin-Sai stumbles away, ignoring the spirit's navigational advice, and walks straight into a trio of thugs who look like they have not eaten in a week. This lead thug immediately spots him, looking like he is ready to start some trouble. And Chin-Sai realizes these are not just street punks. They are armored enforcers who promptly leap down from the rooftops to corner him in the narrow alley. But a moment later, the entire area is completely empty. Our boy lets out a huge sigh of relief, thinking he is somehow in the clear because he has pulled the classic Oscar-worthy hide in a dumpster maneuver. His internal parasite then gives him new directions to a shelter near a clock tower, warning him that going home is off the table since the security bureau will be waiting. Chin-Sai's biggest regret, however, is not deleting his very special homework folder first, a priority that leaves the ancient dragon spirit completely baffled by human nature. Just as he is processing his digital loss, someone starts watching him from above, and it is none other than the captain's high-speed cyborg Flying Squirrel, who drops into the alley with the subtlety of a falling freight train, giving Chin-Sai just enough time to realize he is in very deep trouble before the cyborg snags him by the ankle, casually announcing he is under arrest. This guy then proceeds to use him as a human flail against the alley walls, landing gracefully. After the one-sided beatdown is finally over, he offers a deal. Give up the spirit possessing him and walk away a free man. But the dragon spirit tells him that cooperation is not really an option here. So with a new resolve, Chin-Sai agrees to fight alongside it. Much to the spirit's surprise, Shinsai clarifies that cooperating meant fighting back, not surrendering to the cyborg. With a manic grin, he channels the dragon's power and throws a wild punch at his captor. But Flying Squirrel catches the fist without even breaking a sweat, completely unimpressed, calling his moves predictable and boring, which is just a fantastic ego boost. So, the dragon spirit materializes a gnarly-looking claw gauntlet onto his arm as a little upgrade. And now properly armed, Shinsai readies himself for round 2 with a whole new attitude. He swings again with the claw, only for the cyborg to catch it with both hands, stopping him cold before sending him flying with a perfectly executed backflip kick to the chest. This guy lands like a superhero, barely even ruffled by the entire exchange. Shinsai is just thrilled with his new knuckle duster, earning a quick correction from the spirit, which explains this claw is a divine tool forged by its adorable little spirit buddies. Having had enough fun, the cyborg announces that playtime is over and forced arrest is now in effect. But Shinsai refuses to back down, declaring he will not surrender his freedom or his new parasite. Even taunting the guy, practically begging for a fight now that he's all fired up, Flying Squirrel just promises he will regret that choice. Looking absolutely furious, he launches a diving attack from above, only to find his target has completely vanished from sight. And the dragon spirit screams a warning as the cyborg instantly reappears right behind him, landing a brutal kick that sends our boy stumbling across the alleyway. His internal parasite offers some tactical advice, telling him to aim for the leg since he is too fast. Taking the hint, Shinsai summons a second claw and powers up, ready to actually fight smart for once. He puts the advice to use, blocking a high kick with his dual claws, but the sheer force of the blow still sends him crashing into a pile of scrap metal. This dragon spirit chimes in with some totally unhelpful moral support, and Shinsai immediately tells it to shut up, reminding it that it absorbed the damage, not him. Before they can argue more, the spirit warns him that Flying Squirrel is already on the move again. So, our boy grabs the nearest heavy object, which happens to be a gas canister, and swings it with everything he's got, hoping to land a solid hit. This cyborg just shatters the makeshift weapon with his arm blades, barely even slowing down. Now looking genuinely annoyed that this kid is still putting up a fight. Done playing defense, Shinsai goes full feral, channeling a massive surge of power and unleashes a lightning-fast barrage of slashes that fills the entire alleyway. This time they meet in a brutal clash of claws versus blades, neither one giving an inch. And for the first time, the cyborg is actually forced to skid backward from the impact. He looks up clearly surprised that the kid has this much power hiding in him, even taking a few shallow cuts from the relentless assault. While Shinsai catches his breath, the spirit smugly boasts that its claws are the ultimate weapon. Turns out that was the wrong thing to say because the cyborg erupts in a dark aura, promising to shred him. He then reveals he can smell the parasite inside Shinsai, identifying him as a fellow spirit host, which makes the dragon realize the security bureau did not just hire a cyborg, but another mystic. It explains that the cyborg has his own parasite and Shinsai's attack just disrupted their balance. This dragon explains that his attack did not sever the cyborg's connection, just royally messed it up, which unfortunately unleashed all the host's pain and fury in one massive, uncontrolled burst. Now fully transformed into a werewolf, the cyborg roars that he will kill Shinsai for his spirit. And our boy realizes this is the same out-of-control state he saw on the train before. With no time to think, the beast lunges forward with terrifying speed, landing a brutal punch that sends Shinsai hurtling across the alleyway. While he is getting juggled midair, the dragon spirit desperately tries to give him directions, but he still crashes to the ground, barely managing to stay on his feet. His internal parasite screams a warning as a massive vortex of dark energy closes in, forcing him to block a relentless flurry of attacks that are pushing him to his absolute limit. Even the dragon admits that at this rate, its own power is about to run dry. Shinsai is completely on the ropes, bent over and struggling to withstand the onslaught. So, with nothing left to lose, he decides it is time to go all-in for one final move. His claws ignite with a surge of red and gold energy, ready for a desperate gamble, and he charges forward, digging into the pavement to build up momentum for the attack, channeling every last drop of power. His eyes glow as the dragon's spirit manifests behind him, unleashing a massive spinning slash that carves a golden arc through the air, which connects perfectly, sending the werewolf flying into a parked car as civilians run for cover. As Shinsai catches his breath, the dragon smugly points out their coordination is getting better. He just smirks back, admitting he would not expect anything less from his new partner. This werewolf cyborg is left embedded in the side of a truck, much to the confusion of local pedestrians. And Shinsai glances back, probably thinking he has finally won this ridiculous fight. Onlookers are stunned when he suddenly vanishes, leaving them wondering where their hero went. But unfortunately for him, the werewolf is dropping back into the fight from above like a ton of bricks. Our boy barely has time to register that his opponent is far from finished because the beast is already right in his face, looking even more furious than before. Shinsai powers up his claws, sensing the werewolf is about to make its move. But the monster just blurs into a streak of motion, moving faster than he can track. He realizes with dawning horror that he just attacked an after-image, and the real deal is now standing right behind him, ready to end this. This werewolf immediately locks him in a brutal chokehold from the back, leaving Shinsai completely restrained and quickly running out of air. He knows he is about to lose consciousness while the beast just grins victoriously. Desperate, he asks the spirit for the armor, but it is still offline for repairs. With his strength fading fast, it looks like this is really the end of the line. This dragon spirit even starts its dramatic farewell speech, thanking him for the good times, which is a touching, if slightly premature, thank you for their brief partnership. But Shinsai's eyes snap open, telling his parasite that the eulogy is a bit early. He promises the spirit will be back for round 2 before making one last desperate move and drive his own superpowered claw directly into his own chest. Even the dragon spirit is completely floored by this stab-yourself-to-win strategy, calling the move just a little bit on the extreme side as it materializes in shock. But it works, letting Shinsai phase right through the werewolf's body as the beast tries to bite down. This cyborg's jaws snap shut on empty air, completely missing his target. And in that split second, our boy reappears right behind him, hand glowing with stolen power. His eyes are now blazing with blue energy, looking like he has finally flipped the script. And he tells the werewolf it is time to end this little fight for good. Turns out this claw is not just for show. It can sever the bond between a host and their parasite. So he plunges his hand straight into the cyborg's back, initiating a forced spiritual eviction, remaining completely focused as he pulls the dark energy out of the werewolf's body. This leaves the beast writhing in agony as its power source is ripped away and the wolf's spirit itself cannot believe what is happening. Its connection forcibly severed before it is violently ejected into the alleyway like a supernatural firework. This little purple wolf parasite is left floating there totally vulnerable, and it immediately gets sucked right into Shinsai, who is apparently collecting them. Now, with the fight over, the dragon spirit asks the obvious question, is he going to eat that thing? This spirit just give him a look, probably rethinking this whole partnership. But Shinsai just brushes it off, saying he prefers human food as he leaves the defeated cyborg behind. He casually strolls away from the scene like he did not just perform a Baki exorcism. Unfortunately for him, the cyborg's boss lands on a nearby rooftop asking if the mission was a failure. This cyborg's boss, a hulking dude with a literal cannon for an arm, says he was wondering the same thing. And the now human werewolf frantically tells him to contact a Captain Bew immediately. This seems to confuse the big guy who thought Captain Bew was the one who sent him here in the first place before he shoves his cannon right in the poor guy's face, declaring the 9th District does not welcome him. With that ominous threat hanging in the air, the scene cuts away from the alleyway confrontation, shifting to a rain-slick skyscraper that is clearly some kind of high-tech headquarters. Inside, a blonde woman is getting briefed on the recent spike in rogue symbiont attacks, and some sleazy-looking governor named Ming Lang is laying the praise on thick for her work. She, however, looks completely unimpressed by the flattery, probably because she knows what is coming next as a commander from the 9th District complains that her team is operating on his turf. Apparently, the whole point of the mission was just data collection on our boy's parasite. But the commander still thinks mobilizing the entire security department for one small fry is overkill. And Captain Bew is just radiating pure, I am surrounded by idiots energy. This governor then gives her a thinly veiled threat about not overstepping her boundaries. Commander Jang then smugly mentions testing a new weapon the governor gave him, which clearly shocks Captain Bew. But the governor just brushes her off, saying her team is the priority and dangling a promotion. She is clearly biting back some choice words, completely stuck in this political mess. So, she just announces she has duties to attend to and promptly walks out on them. This woman is practically radiating fury as she storms out of the room. And at that exact moment, she gets a call, probably with more bad news. On the other end of that call, Captain Bew tells her contact she will find their target, but it'll cost double. Meanwhile, Shinsai is just trying to blend into a crowd when everyone's phone starts buzzing. Turns out the entire city just went into an emergency state with his face plastered on a wanted list. Someone casually taps his profile, pulling up all his dirty laundry for the world to see, which includes his name, age, and his not-so-secret identity as a symbiont host. His parasite smugly points out he is a celebrity now, and Chinsai dryly thanks it for the trouble. He then gets a notification from some shady-looking online forum, which immediately piques his interest as a potential source of information. So, he opens the app, hoping to find some answers in the digital underground. This community board is basically a support group for people whose lives are being ruined by parasites. After getting past the site's ridiculous mascot, the spirit explains this place is a hub for intel, claiming it is their best shot at survival now that they are officially on the run. Chinsai lays out his new goal, find a rumored shelter and get this thing out of him for good. He sees a post about someone getting tracked and decides to power his phone down. But the dragon points out that is a rookie move since they can still be traced by cell towers. That is when our boy gets the distinct feeling he has walked right into a trap. And sure enough, he is instantly surrounded by a squad of heavily armed soldiers. With no way out, he lets the dark energy flow, preparing for another brawl, transforming into his full armored form right in the middle of the street. His eyes glow with power, ready to show these guys exactly why he is on that list. The soldiers immediately open fire, deploying some kind of weird energy cube shields. But Chinsai's armor just shrugs off the initial barrage of spiky projectiles, and he retaliates with a swarm of his own spinning golden discs. He effortlessly weaves through the squad, deflecting their attacks like they are standing still. And in a matter of seconds, the entire team is left scattered across the crosswalk. Just then, a much beefier-looking soldier steps up, apparently the squad's last hope, who proceeds to charge up a massive energy cannon for a much bigger blast, firing a concentrated beam of blue energy right at our boy's chest. Chinsai just casually sidesteps the attack like he is dodging a slow-moving bus, letting the blast sail harmlessly past him and into the street behind. Before the soldier can even process the miss, Chinsai is already in his face, landing a devastating slash that carves right through the guy's high-tech armor. He sends the last soldier flying, muttering that these guys are more annoying than actually skilled. Having made his escape, Chinsai makes his way to a supposed safe house in a skyscraper. Finding the place is a completely abandoned, dusty old building, just as planned. His contact had assured him this spot is completely off the grid, a perfect place to disappear. And as he enters the main room, a figure is waiting for him in a brightly lit doorway. This new guy dramatically announces that this is the end of the line for Chinsai, which would be a lot more intimidating if he was not wearing bright green dinosaur slippers. This guy then immediately ruins his own cool entrance by asking if anyone else feels something moving. This dragon spirit cryptically announces that his welcoming party has finally arrived, and a confused Chinsai is told to just read a specific phrase out loud. He recites some poetic nonsense about purifying hearts and banishing evil, which immediately causes the entire room to violently shake apart. Turns out that was the password to activate the shelter's massive isolation barrier, and the dusty old room transforms into some kind of high-tech wizard's workshop. This tour is cut short by a swarm of blue ghost things phasing through the walls, which pour out from the floorboards and surround the guy in the dino slippers, who seems to be their primary target. As they latch right onto him, he is immediately overwhelmed by the wave of little blue symbionts and starts panicking that he cannot breathe under the ghostly dog pile. He desperately tries to fight them off, but they just keep coming, leaving him spinning helplessly in a vortex of blue spiritual energy. That is when a woman with white hair appears, casually explaining the spirits want his body. And Chinsai immediately goes on the defensive, demanding to know who she is. She just coolly remarks on how tough it is being a symbiont host. But her whole cool girl act is instantly ruined when she trips and face-plant hard. She is left crying on the floor, admitting her midair moves still need some work. Chinsai, completely missing the vibe, thinks she is another government agent, so he lunges in for the attack while the other guy tries to tell him she is friendly. This white-haired woman gives him a look that could freeze fire, clearly unimpressed with his entrance. As the guy in the slippers uses some kind of gravity power to flip Chinsai upside down, leaving our boy completely paralyzed and unable to fight back against the strange force. He gets tossed across the room like a rag doll right towards the woman who effortlessly stops him with one hand, asking why he is trashing her home. This slipper-wearing dude frantically tries to explain it is all a big misunderstanding. But this Sister Ching just grabs Chinsai's parasite arm, completely shutting it down, and pins him to the floor with a single foot just to make a point. Meanwhile, her friend is finally free from the ghost swarm, gasping for air. Sister Ching then starts talking directly to the dragon spirit, and Chinsai realizes she is a host, too. This other guy explains she is a century-old arts master who deserves some serious respect. But Chinsai, who has never respected anyone in his life, tries to attack her anyway. She just lifts him off the ground by his arm like he weighs absolutely nothing before calling his body a tender vessel that would make a perfect servant. Her generous offer is that he can stay provided he becomes her personal maid. And Shinsai is obviously not thrilled about the prospect of doing chores for a living. She just smirks, reminding him he does not exactly have a choice in the matter. Even his own parasite tells him to just swallow his pride because they have zero leverage here. So naturally, Shinsai calls her a shameless old hag and grabs her by the collar. He boasts that these so-called masters are not so tough, while she just tells him to let go. Her hand crackles with golden energy, and it is clear he just made a colossal mistake, leaving his own parasite completely speechless at the sheer audacity on display. With a single, almost lazy chop, Sister Ching slams him face first into the ground, and Shinsai can only look up, totally stunned that he got one shot so easily. She just stares him down, completely unimpressed by his little outburst of defiance before grabbing him by the jacket to teach him a proper lesson in respect. Our boy Ever the Diplomat decides the best course of action is to call her an old witch, which immediately earns him a one-way ticket to being dangled helplessly in the air. She calmly tells him he really needs to start understanding his situation, explaining that all hosts end up here and he'll have to beg for mercy to be forgiven. This dragon spirit desperately tries to de-escalate, suggesting they all just talk it out. But Shinsai is having none of it, powering up and yelling about this unbearable humiliation. He transforms his arm into a massive claw and takes a wild swing at her. So she just sidesteps and tells him he can go rot on his own. Then with a casual flick of her wrist, she launches him straight out the clock tower window. Down below, a squad of guards has no idea they are about to become a landing pad, as Shinsai crashes right into them, creating a messy pile of bodies and armor. He sits up in the wreckage, complaining about his terrible luck with century-old lunatics. His parasite points out he just royally ticked off the one person who could have helped them, revealing her palm strike was strong enough to separate them, and she is a beacon for all symbionts. This sparks a brilliant idea in Shinai's head. Maybe this old lady is his ticket back to a normal life. While the slipper guy awkwardly explains Sister Ching is usually way nicer than this. So Shinsai decides his new mission is to suck it up and somehow earn her trust. His first problem on that quest is realizing he lost his wallet during the earlier brawl, leaving him with literally just a handful of coins to his name. He tries to use his phone for a quick solution, but gets nothing but a dead tone. Turns out the government has already restricted his identity and cut off all his connections. This dragon spirit tells him to memorize a string of numbers before he does anything drastic, as we see more shady-looking agents patrolling the city streets for any sign of him. Knowing the phone is a tracking device, Shinsai decides it is time to say goodbye, giving it a dramatic send-off as he tosses it into the river. It splashes into the water, finally severing his last tie to his old life, sinking down into the dark, murky depths where it immediately starts ringing, attracting the local wildlife. This glowing screen on the riverbed acts as a beacon for something lurking nearby, and a monstrous fish-like creature darts through the water towards the sound, who turns out to be some goggle-wearing fisherman that snatches the phone right up. Elsewhere, some sleazy guy is leaving a host club, clearly looking for more trouble, and a pink-haired cat girl maid immediately welcomes him with a suspiciously sweet smile. She starts shaking up a magical drink for him, and it is obvious this guy's night is about to get weird. She tries mixing him a magical drink, but completely forgets the magic words halfway through. And the sleazy patron, thinking her magic just fizzled, invites her to sit down and try again. Turns out she's only smiling through the harassment because she is in massive debt to the cafe's owner. But as the dude gets way too close for comfort, her patience is visibly wearing thin. So she gives him his happy water by smashing the bottle right over his head, leaving the guy's bodyguard and another maid completely stunned by the sudden violence. While her coworkers desperately try to apologize, the bodyguard starts yelling at her for her attitude. So she just storms off into an alley, completely fed up with the whole situation. That is when her boss calls, yelling at this maid Hisha for what she just did, reminding her this is her second strike against the important boss Kian and threatening her job. But Hisha just sees this guy as a juicy new target, calmly agreeing to make amends. As her eyes start glowing with a dangerous purple light, revealing her true nature and wreathed in a strange aura, she heads back to finish the job properly. She is back to playing the sweet maid, but the guy tells her to forget the drink and just stay. He immediately gets handsy, which is exactly the mistake she was waiting for, telling him he ruined her spell before blowing some kind of magic smoke in his face. This guy is instantly mesmerized, left drooling and completely under her control, dazedly asking her to come with him later while she agrees with a predatory smile. Their destination is some high-end building with a giant glowing heart sign out front. But as he carries her inside, a shadowy observer reveals they have been watching Haida all along. Her sweet maid act drops completely, revealing a monstrous spirit with a serious grudge against perverts. And this sleazy agent can only scream as he realizes he messed with the wrong part-timer. With zero hesitation, she knocks him out cold with a single precise chop to the neck, leaving him to hit the floor hard, completely unconscious. We're in purple energy. Haida stands over him, her own symbiont coiled and ready. Her first move naturally is to go through his wallet, unimpressed by the lack of cash. But then she finds his ID. He is not some big shot, just a low-level security bureau agent. All that effort for a government schmuck, leaving her completely disappointed in the payout. Rummaging through his pockets, she pulls out what looks like his official work device, where she stumbles upon a pending bounty for none other than Shinsai, and she instantly recognizes him as a guy from her college, stunned by the massive price on his head. Meanwhile, our boy is stuck in an alley trying to make a call from a pay phone, complaining that he has already called everyone he knows, but they have all turned their backs on him. Now he is down to just a few coins, his entire net worth rattling in his hand, and his parasite asks what he's going to do with his very last one. After a moment of quiet desperation, he seems to finally have an idea. Taking a deep breath and steeling himself for one last gamble, he finally dials that mysterious string of numbers the dragon spirit gave him earlier. And the call connects to an employee dorm where a phone starts ringing over a running sink. This person picking up is Hisha, who now has a 120,000 coin reason to be interested in this unknown caller. Hisha answers the phone, completely oblivious to the massive payday that has just called her. On the other end, Shinsai reintroduces himself, looking way too pleased that the call connected. This name instantly clicks for her. She remembers him from a club back in their college days. A quick flashback shows their past interactions as she wonders why he's calling from an unknown number. He gives a very casual excuse about his phone taking a swim, which she pretends to believe. Internally, however, she is celebrating because her little fishing plan is officially on track. His parasite thinks their old friendship is a great foundation to build on, totally missing the vibe. Shinsai immediately tells his inner dragon to shut up before he completely blows his cover. After that little outburst, he quickly explains he is on a pay phone and needs to keep things short. He cuts right to the chase, asking for help, and Hisha realizes her golden opportunity has arrived. Our boy then lays out his sob story about losing his wallet and phone during the earlier chaos. Desperate, he asks for a loan, explaining he is completely broke and stuck in her city. His real plan, of course, is to use the cash to somehow earn Sister Ching's trust. Hisha connects the dots, but decides her own financial problems are way more important right now. Her scheme is simple. Meet up with him, get an advance on the bounty, and finally be free. So, she confirms she is in the city, ready to execute her plan and escape her terrible job. She agrees to lend him the money, but slightly asks how a wanted man plans to actually collect it. He promises not to involve her, suggesting a simple dead drop, but his parasite feels something is off. She sets the time and place, a quiet warehouse district, which is definitely not suspicious at all. But before she can add anything else, the line goes dead, leaving her staring at her phone in surprise. Shinsai slams the phone down, his last coin and last hope officially gone. Back in her apartment, Hisha just hopes he does not get caught since they both have their own goals. His parasite then asks the obvious question, why not just call his parents for help? Turns out his childhood was all about constant criticism and feeling like he was never good enough. So, he learned early on to never confide in them, feeling guilty for even asking. With tears in his eyes, he admits he just cannot bring himself to be a burden to them. So, with nowhere else to go, he finds a spot to crash for the night under a bridge. This next morning, he wakes up feeling less than refreshed after his 5-star accommodations. Having spent the night with some local vagrants, which is a new low even for him, and his day gets even better when he realizes they have tied him up while he was asleep. They cheerfully explain they're turning him in for the bounty, because everyone needs a payday. Shinsai is, to put it mildly, absolutely disgusted by this betrayal. Their leader just shrugs it off, saying they're just trying to survive and the cops are on their way. But with his eyes glowing gold, Shinsai makes it clear they severely underestimated their target, as he flexes and shatters the thick ropes with a surge of raw power. This blast of energy sends the would-be bounty hunters flying completely caught off guard. With his parasite fully manifested, he calls this his morning stretch, ready for round 2. Undeterred, the guys grab whatever pipes and sticks they can find to try and take him down. One of them charges in with a desperate battle cry, swinging a wooden plank with all his might, which immediately shatters against the dragon's armored head, doing absolutely nothing. This guy's makeshift weapon actually manages to crack the dragon's armor. A surprisingly decent hit, which gives the rest of the crew a sudden burst of misplaced confidence, deciding to swarm him. But Shinsai just unleashes a whirlwind of claws and energy, sending them all flying. So their big, burly leader decides it is time for him to handle this, personally charging forward with a look of pure determination on his face, and he swings his giant hammer with everything he has only for Shinsai to effortlessly intercept it, shattering the weapon into a million pieces and ending the fight in a single blow. With the vagrants now begging for their lives, he calmly asks for directions to the port, then leaps away, leaving the terrified men to contemplate their poor life choices. Unfortunately, his monstrous form is spotted by a little girl, who immediately starts screaming about the bad guy, alerting some nearby agents, who instantly give chase, forcing Shinsai to dive into the river. Down in the murky water, he comes face to face with that goggle-wearing fisherman from before, who wordlessly points him toward a sewer entrance, offering an escape route. So he slips into the tunnels where his parasite suggests laying low for a while right before a buzzing security drone comes flying around the corner. His inner dragon immediately identifies it as a new toy from the security bureau, confirming that the government is now actively patrolling the sewers for any signs of him. This parasite tells him to revert to human form to save energy and be less of a target, which is when Shinsai learns his new powers actually have a battery life. Turns out the host and spirit share energy, which is why he has not felt hungry this whole time. Shinsai asks if spirits eat each other, and his parasite confirms it is a total dog-eat-dog world. This dragon explains that weaker spirits just absorb ambient energy until they find a human host. Those who fail to find a partner just become lunch for the bigger, meaner spirits out there. Our boy dryly notes that this sounds an awful lot like regular human society. Actually, his parasite tries to romanticize it, comparing finding a host to finding the perfect life partner. But Shinsai is absolutely grossed out, clarifying he wants to be human, not shack up with a monster. This dragon then reminds him of the time he saved it from a flying squirrel thing, which Shinji admits he remembers. This flashes back to him researching Chiwang City, digging into forums about the Security Bureau's shady practices. He watches a testimony from an old man who was brutally experimented on by the Bureau's agents. Even after being cured, the guy's body is failing, and he is dying from the after effects. This comment section is a war zone of sympathy, anti-government rage, and straight-up hate for heteromorphs. Seeing all this, a younger Shinsai seriously reconsiders his trip, but the ticket is already bought. With a sigh of resignation, he just leans back, deciding to go through with it anyway. Turns out Chiwang City is a weird abandoned enclave now co-run by humans and heteromorphs. This main draw, however, is that the jobs there pay double, which is all he needed to hear. This old man's video ends with a grim warning to other heteromorphs. Never trust the Bureau. Back in the present, Shinsai arrives at the desolate Miracle Park to find the port for his meetup. This entire place is a wasteland of shattered monuments and floating rocks looking completely abandoned. He decides to get a better view of the area instead of just wandering through the ruins. And his eyes land on a massive broken statue with some kind of inscription at its base. He brushes away the dust, revealing the monument's ancient inscription, which identifies it as the statue of the mother goddess of creation, a relic thousands of years old. His parasite explains that humans digging for relics caused the statue to fall, triggering the rift event. Shinsai, of course, has absolutely no idea what that means, but just hearing the word rift seems to trigger a strange resonance with the ruins, unleashing a vision of a cosmic tear, a gateway for spirits to pour into their world. This memory hits Shinsai like a truck, causing his head to split with agonizing pain, and both he and his parasite are screaming in unison, reliving a traumatic shared memory. Suddenly, the dragon's spirit remembers its past life on a vibrant, otherworldly plane, a time when it was caught in a massive battle between the so-called strongest beasts on Earth. This flashback shows a chaotic free-for-all, with all kinds of spirits tearing each other apart. And Shinsai is now seeing this through the parasite's eyes, realizing it was once a tiny boar-like creature. In this memory, it is fighting a desperate territorial battle against a much larger skywolf, while his current dragon form yells at its past self to fight back and reclaim what is theirs. But its tiny claws are completely useless against the wolf's powerful strikes. And the little guy gets absolutely rocked by a counterattack sent flying through the air. Despite the size difference, they are somehow locked in an even match, a clash of pure will. At that exact moment, the sky shatters and a massive rift tears open above them as a powerful force starts sucking all the spirits into the vortex, including the two fighters. This parasite explains they were all pulled into the void, unable to resist the pull. This dragon explains they were summoned to punish relic thieves, but mutated into monsters in this world. In this vision, a giant boar-like beast is shown absolutely crushing one of the human workers. And now Chinsai is reliving a past life as a miner, naively determined to accomplish something. Someone screams at him to run, a warning he seems completely deaf to. A moment later, a massive foot descends to turn him into a fine paste, which it does with spectacular, if messy, efficiency. This kicked off a massive war between the beasts and humans, with entire villages getting wiped out. This human defenders drove off the thieves, but failed to protect the very resources they were guarding. Meanwhile, the bad guys just drive off with their loot mission totally accomplished. Then, the rift suddenly closed, trapping all the ancient beasts on Earth for good. With their only way home sealed off, they were officially stuck in a hostile world. This human leader from the vision just gives up, dying among the ruins of his failure. Chinsai's past self meets a similarly grim end. His body torn apart in the chaos. His spirit rises from the corpse, bummed he did not even get to say any cool last words. And his afterlife immediately gets worse as other meaner spirits move in for a snack. Turns out all the ancient beasts also became spirits after their physical bodies could not survive. This dragon clarifies they could not adapt to the world's air, so they just became energy beings. Back in the present, Chinsai is screaming, absorbing some glowing core that triggered the memory. He's taking in all that raw power, his face a mask of pure agony and concentration. This vision finally ends, leaving him stumbling away from the statue, completely drained. This dragon explains they were all locked away in some dark space until a massive explosion set them free. Turns out it tried possessing other hosts before, but every single one of them violently rejected it. That is when it met a boy named King Jai, who offered a lifeline when it was at its weakest. Chinsai asks the obvious question, why is the Bureau hunting it? But the dragon clarifies they are after all host spirits. Apparently, the Bureau's top mission is to eliminate the Crimson Emperor and his family, a directive from King Tan. Our boy actually recognizes that name from the forums, the supposed true master of Crimson Emperor City. Meanwhile, a blonde agent walks through the ruins, sensing a gate to another realm buried deep below. This is brand new information for the parasite, who is furious that King Jai never mentioned other passages home. Chinsai realizes his new friend has been keeping secrets, but tables that for now to focus on the port. And just like that, he spots Bayong Port in the distance. His rendezvous point finally in sight. But as he gets closer, he is suddenly trapped in some kind of mental assault. Facing an impossible choice, this blonde agent Buff Fong is taunting him about trusting a monster, offering the Bureau's help via syringe. In his mind, ghostly hands try to tear the dragon away, while it promises to respect whatever he decides. He is clearly in agony, fighting a battle in his own head as Buffong waits for him to break. But out of nowhere, Hisha arrives on the scene, screaming for everyone to stop. She is yelling directly at Chinsai to snap out of it, trying to break through the illusion. Her voice cuts through the mental fog, a beacon of light in all the psychic chaos. Inside his mindscape, Chinsai reaches for his parasite, refusing to let them be taken. Buffong just sneers that it is too late, lunging forward with her syringe for the final blow. At that exact moment, a massive surge of golden energy erupts from Chinsai's body. This shockwave sends Buffong flying her syringe, tumbling uselessly through the air, while her armored goons get absolutely blasted back by the sheer force of his transformation, leaving the agent completely stunned that her perfect plan just went up in smoke. And even Hisha, still held captive, cannot believe what she is seeing. Chinsai, now rocking a sleek new armored form, vows he is not giving up his parasite, which is a development Buong clearly did not see coming. As the dragon explains, this is their second form awakening, a perfect bond of their beliefs. And our boy can feel the power coursing through him. A true fusion of man and monster. Buffong can only watch in horror, realizing her target has just evolved right in front of her. Which is when Hisha tearfully confesses she is the informant who sold him out for her freedom. Buffong mocks their pathetic little drama, while Hiza complains her powers do not work on robots, and Chinsai is just trying to figure out the controls on his brand new superpower body. Having seen enough, Buffong recovers and screams at her men to bring him down. So Chinsai decides to start right in front of them, closing the distance in a flash, forcing the goons to open fire with a barrage of bright blue energy blasts. But he is moving at blinding speed, weaving between the shots like they are standing still. Her men cannot even get a targeting lock, warning each other about his deadly speed. So one of them decides to switch to a less direct approach, pulling out a small sphere, then promptly grabs Hisha and gags her, going straight for the hostage play. But Shinsai just gracefully leaps over another attack, completely unfazed by their desperation. Shinsai immediately puts his new form to the test, landing precise, brutal strikes on the Bureau's goons before casually charging up a massive energy blast from his gauntlet, which he unleashes in a devastating wave of pure power. This remaining soldier, holding Haida, can only stare in disbelief as Shinsai's new armor plating proves to be practically indestructible. Boang, absolutely furious, screams at her men to go all out with maximum firepower. So, they unload a coordinated barrage of energy shots right at him, completely obliterating a nearby warehouse in the process. Unbeknownst to them, a new player carrying a giant anchor is watching the whole show from a rooftop, and he seems to be thoroughly enjoying the spectacle unfolding below. He reports to his boss over the phone, mentioning how tempted he is to join the party. On the other end, a cold-hearted man orders him to capture Shinsai's spirit and kill everyone else. This boss is seriously ticked off that this fight is happening in his territory and decides to step in personally. Back on the ground, the smoke from the explosion begins to clear, revealing a very shocked Buff Fong and her last remaining soldier. Hisha, still gagged and captured, looks on with wide-eyed terror, while Shinsai stands there completely unscathed, getting the hang of his new body. He cracks a confident smirk, announcing that it is finally his turn and instantly closes the distance on the final armored goon, who swings a massive cannon fist right at our boy's head. But Shinsai just vaults over the cannon fist, making the attack look laughably slow, his glowing eyes already calculating his next move against the disorganized mob. Meanwhile, the last goon is still clinging to Haida, his one and only brilliant idea. But Shinsai makes it clear they are not getting away with his friend that easily, parrying their clumsy strikes with his newly armored claws and gauntlets. He even blocks a spiked mace with his forearm, completely unfazed by the impact. So another soldier tries a different tactic, whipping out a heavy chain weapon, which our boy just snatches right out of the air, stopping it dead in its tracks. They surround him and demand to surrender, a request he seems to find hilarious. As he holds two of the goons at bay using their own weapons against them, he then gives one of them a personal tour of the warehouse ceiling before slamming him into the concrete with absolute authority. Another goon decides to just start blasting wildly, hoping something connects, forcing his own teammate holding Haida to dive out of the way of the friendly fire. Fed up with the incompetence, Boang finally intervenes with a flying kick, clearly furious about having to do her subordinates' jobs for them. She delivers a devastating blow right to her own soldier's head, knocking him out cold and sending him flying across the battlefield. Hisha is finally free, though she is probably more traumatized than ever. And even Shinsai has to admit that with some seriously impressive leg strength. Shinsai immediately clocks that Boang's been hiding her true strength, though her arrogance is seriously grating. And she tries to play diplomat, warning him that brute force will only hurt the people around him, using Haida as a prime example while transparently stalling for time. A trick our boy sees right through. At that exact moment, one of the previously defeated armored goons starts to stir, slowly pulling itself back together as its systems reboot from the earlier beatdown. Our boy realizes with dawning horror that these androids are literally coming back to life. With her backup restored, Shinsai refuses to let her take Hisha, who still owes him for the betrayal, giving her one last chance to walk away and warning her she has picked the wrong target. Buffong just scoffs that the parasite has scrambled his brain, insisting she is only trying to help him, painting a grim picture of his future as a caged fugitive with no hope of escape. Turns out capturing him is just a stepping stone for her to become the commander of District 11. So, she offers him a job, promising to pull some strings for him once she gets her promotion, asking him to join her with a smug look that says she has already won. Shinsai just stares back, completely unmoved by her corporate recruitment pitch. Meanwhile, Hisha is mentally screaming at him not to fall for it, knowing Buffong is just a power-hungry narcissist, wishing he could see how the Bureau's pretty words have ruined the lives of people in the slums. Our boy just scoffs at the very idea of cooperating with her organization, while Buffong impatiently demands his final answer, still confident in her offer, and Shinsai gives it to her, flatly refusing to work with a bunch of sanctimonious hypocrites. Her smug expression finally shatters, completely stunned that he actually turned her down. Buffong, having completely lost her composure, screams at her men to capture him immediately. So, the freshly rebooted androids swarm forward with their chain maces, ready for round 2. But just as they attack, the anchor-wielding maniac from the rooftop literally crashes the party, who promptly announces that Shinsai is his personal prize, and everyone else can just get lost. His landing sends a massive shockwave that scatters the Bureau's forces like bowling pins. And Shinsai barely manages to block the enormous anchor as it comes swinging his way. This new guy just grins, winding up for another absolutely devastating attack, which our boy catches, though the sheer force of it is clearly staggering. A brutal kick sends him flying backwards, smashing right through a stack of wooden crates, leaving Hisha to watch in terror, trying to scream his name through her gag. Meanwhile, Buffong is completely bewildered as this new crew starts dismantling her own squad. This anchor comes down with terrifying speed, absolutely obliterating one of the Bureau's androids in a single brutal strike. This newcomer then formally warns Buong that Shinsai is his prey, and interference as consequences, she is left stunned, realizing this is not just some random thug who wandered in. Shinsai gets back on his feet, immediately clashing with one of the anchor guy's subordinates, while the big boss taunts him about his claws, and Hisha desperately tries to warn him of an attack. But it is too late as a heavy blow connects squarely with the side of his head. He is driven to his knees, completely vulnerable to the anchor swinging down from above. As his attacker gloats about how much trouble it was to track him through the 9th District, Shinsai just barely catches the anchor, the sheer force of the blow cracking the concrete underfoot, and he furiously demands to know who the hell this new psycho even is. But another swing sends him flying backward before he can get straight answer. This newcomer introduces himself as a hunter sent to collect the Heil commodity inside our boy before adding, with a deeply unsettling grin, that he might just eat it instead. It finally clicks for Shinsai. This maniac is from the infamous Hunter Guild. Meanwhile, Buong's team can only watch as the hunter taunts Shinsai about his high price tag, explaining that his guild is full of elite killers who hunt targets for massive bounties. This is a complete disaster for Buong, who sees her promotion to District 11 commander slipping away. Flashing back to how her once powerful family lost everything after her father defied the organization. She's absolutely determined to reclaim that power and restore her family's legacy no matter what. Back in the fight, Shinsai and the hunter are a blur of high-speed attacks and parries. While Buong's subordinate reminds her they still have Hisha as their one remaining bargaining chip. So, she decides to let the two powerhouses beat each other senseless and just pick off the winner. This hunter seems to be having the time of his life, swinging his anchor with a psychotic laugh, while Shinsai counters with a desperate flurry of slashes from his armored claws. Their battle lights up the warehouse as purple and yellow energy clashes violently. But the hunter's raw power is clearly overwhelming, landing a solid hit on our boy. He follows up with a brutal upward swing that connects squarely with Shinsai's chest, launching him straight through the warehouse roof and out into the open sky. Instead of just falling, Shinsai uses the momentum to dive towards the docks below, leaving the hunter annoyed that his new toy is trying to run away from the fight already. He spots our boy on a lower level, taunting him that there is nowhere left to hide. But Shinsai was not running. He was just repositioning for his real objective. Of course, the hunter just calls him a weakling and gives chase across the rooftops. Turns out Shinsai has spotted Buffang's squad, realizing his one chance to grab Haida is now. Buffang and her crew look up, completely blindsided, as he appears right above them on a container. She instantly figures out his plan and screams a warning to the goon holding Hisha. But it is way too late, as Shinsai is already a blur of motion, snatching Hisha right out of the soldier's grasp in one fluid movement. She's completely stunned to be rescued while our boy is all business. Just then, the hunter crashes the party again, diving down from above with a triumphant yell. This whole battlefield erupts into a three-way brawl as everyone scrambles for their target. Buffang's brilliant soldiers decide the best course of action is to just start blasting wildly at Shin by forcing her to scream at them to cease fire before they hit their only bargaining chip. This hunter, meanwhile, is furious at the interference and smashes one of the androids with his anchor. He lands with enough force to make it clear he is absolutely done playing nice. Another one of the Bureau's goons gets a face full of that anchor for getting in the way, which leads to Buffang just stomping on the head of her own down android in frustration, deciding that if you want something done right, you have to kick your own subordinates into scrap metal. Furious that her promotion is being hijacked, Buffang charges the hunter with her own weapons drawn, but the anchor-wielding psycho just watches her approach. Completely unconcerned, she unleashes a rapid-fire series of baton strikes, trying to overwhelm him with speed, which he proceeds to block with his bare arms like he is swatting away flies. Her determined face is reflected in his goggles as she desperately tries to find an opening, and she even manages to land a couple of solid hits that do absolutely nothing. This hunter just grunts, clearly unimpressed by her best efforts to even scratch him. He casually stops one of her attacks cold, catching the baton with just 2 fingers, then forces her to leap back with a devastating swing of his own massive weapon. Her next desperate block is met with a simple punch that stops her dead in her tracks. Buffon lets out a frustrated battle cry, putting every last bit of her strength into the fight, landing a powerful kick squarely against the side of his head, which only makes him stumble for a moment before he is swinging that anchor again. She barely ducks under the attack, the sheer force of it whipping past her hair, and her attempt to block the weapon's shaft is clearly straining her to the limit. With some impressive agility, she vaults off his anchor to create some breathing room. This hunter actually compliments her skill before adding it is a shame she is not his target. He has completely lost interest in her, announcing he can already smell his real prey. Chinsai panicked. Buong immediately orders her remaining soldiers to chase after him. While up above, Chinsai tells a guilt-ridden Haida to forget the apologies and focus on escaping. Our boy shoves a giant spike club into Haida's hands for some last-minute self-defense, and she realizes the weapon was originally for him, but apparently he is feeling overconfident. He bolts for an exit, leaving a very unathletic Haida struggling to keep up behind him. But the sound of impossibly fast footsteps echoes through the alleyway, right on their tail, and his enhanced senses immediately lock onto the incoming threat, confirming they have been followed. Chinsai screams at her to get out of the way because the hunter is already there. With a maniacal laugh, the anchor-wielding psycho drops in from above, ready for round two. His landing so powerful it practically craters the concrete beneath him. Without missing a beat, he plows straight into Chinsai, smashing him into a nearby container. As they clash, the parasite informs Chinsai they are syncing up, reaching a new level of awareness, urging him to concentrate and tap into his real power to overcome this maniac. Fired up, Chinsai focuses his energy, his armor glowing with renewed purple light. He fires off a massive energy wave, but the hunter just sidesteps it, his anchor obliterating the spot where he stood. From the sidelines, Hisha is just stunned, realizing how completely outclassed they are. Unfortunately for her, a blonde woman from the hunter's crew appears, targeting Haida as a bargaining chip. She coldly orders her android companion to seize the girl who is completely caught off guard. This blonde woman mocks her as a weak human, but Hisa defiantly stands her ground. And with her name revealed as Haley, she taps into some hidden power, her eyes glowing yellow. A strange energy crackles to life around her, suggesting she is way more than she appears, leaving the blonde woman completely stunned by this sudden and unexpected power-up. This blonde woman is completely baffled by this new development, wondering if Haley is a sorcerer. But she quickly realizes this cloning ability is something far stranger than typical magic. And Haley confirms it, even as the androids struggle to keep her restrained. A voice in her head urges her to focus and remember the last time she tapped into this power. It finally clicks for the hunter. Haley must be an aberrant, just like their main target. With a grim flashback to some kind of experiment, Haley finally understands what she needs to do. While her opponent gloats about stealing Haley's spirit to secure her own promotion, so Haley unleashes her power, a spiritual wolf flaring to life as she attacks the androids, suddenly multiplying into an entire squad of clones that leaves the hunter completely stunned. This newly formed Haley army calmly informs the blonde that her mission is officially over. Unfazed, the woman scoffs that Chinsai cannot help her now and prepares to fight back. And speaking of which, our boy is busy dodging the anchor-gay, absolutely relentless assault. This hunter lands a brutal punch that sends Chinsai careening across the warehouse floor. Their high-speed battle tearing the entire place apart and sending debris flying everywhere. This parasite explains this is his new enhanced sensory ability finally kicking into gear, which is great timing because the hunter is now trying to drop a shipping container on him. This new power lets him predict his opponent's moves before they even happen, allowing him to effortlessly slip past another one of the hunter's devastating punches. He uses that opening to land a vicious counterattack right into the big guy's gut, his armored fist glowing as he finally connects with a solid, powerful blow. Chinsai unleashes a brutal combo, finally overwhelming the hunter with a flurry of high-speed strikes. This big guy actually cries out in pain, his goggles shattering from the sheer force of the blows. With the parasite's power surging, our boy furiously demands an end to all the bloodshed before launching a massive spinning slash that sends his opponent hurtling across the docks. This hunter crashes to the ground in a heap, looking completely and utterly defeated for once. Our boy smugly informs him that his claws are far from his only trick. Barely conscious, the hunter admits he has now seen the true power of an aberrant at full sync, then adds with a chilling grin that it is too bad everyone here is about to die. Yellow energy suddenly starts crackling around his body as he begins laughing like a total psycho. Turns out the Hunter Guild has a sore loser rule. If you're about to die, you take your target with you. Meanwhile, the blonde woman is handily dismantling Haley's clones, completely unaware of the new problem. Shinsai immediately senses the shift in energy and leaps away from the impending blast zone. Now a living bomb, the hunter screams that there is absolutely no escape from this. From a rooftop, Shinsai spots the other hunters still fighting and yells that the whole area is going to blow. As the psycho below becomes a blinding sphere of crackling, unstable power. In a split-second decision, he swoops down and grabs the blonde woman whose name is apparently Lucas. This entire dock erupts in a massive fiery explosion that vaporizes everything in sight. From a safe distance, the shock wave rumbles across the water, leaving a mushroom cloud behind. A new commander appears, coolly, noting the old fool failed while praising Buffon's heroic sacrifice. He then orders his own squad to hunt down Lucas Chin, dead or alive, to secure his own promotion. As the dust from the self-destruct sequence finally begins to settle, Lucas and Haley emerge from the rubble, somehow still in one piece. Turns out Shinsai took the brunt of the blast to shield them, and he is barely holding on. Elsewhere, in some kind of dark prison, a blindfolded man hangs from massive chains, revealing he was tortured for information, but never gave up his organization's secrets. A blue-haired woman coldly informs him he's being sacrificed to a river god for his weakness. This prisoner is horrified, realizing this powerful entity has actually come to their world. Right on cue, a massive glowing tentacle emerges from the shadows, and it smashes his cage to bits before he can even scream. A colossal eldritch monster reveals itself, confirming the river god is very, very real. This woman explains this being was once sealed away after failing to stop a T-King. While she monologues, the monster begins to crush the life out of the captive. It then proceeds to rip his very soul out of his body in the form of a spirit dragon. His captor just watches completely unbothered by the dark energy washing over her. After devouring the soul, the river god asks its loyal follower what she desires. She bows deeply, begging the omnipotent being to guide her path once again. In response, 2 more spectral dragons are unleashed from the darkness, swirling around the monstrous god as it prepares to act on her request. The sheer scale of the creature is absolutely terrifying, dwarfing everything in sight. Its massive eye focuses, sensing that another aberrant has just awakened to a new level of power. This river god reveals it once knew Shinsai's parasite, a spirit named who betrayed it. And now that he is synced with a human, he might just be the aberrant's last hope. It orders its follower to protect the other spirits and stop the T-King's grand plan, because if some cosmic cocoon hatches, a new species will rise and wipe out humanity. Back at the docks, Lucas is busy apologizing to the barely conscious Shinsai for all the trouble. But Haley is having none of it, demanding she shows some actual gratitude for being saved before clarifying he is just exhausted from the fight and helping him sit down. At that moment, Shinsai's parasite realizes he can communicate with Haley's own inner spirit, who introduces herself as Nine Tails, casually mentioning she has dealt with his kind before. Turns out her power can mask auras, which is why he never sensed another aberrant nearby. She sends a wave of healing energy into Shinsai to speed up his recovery, which works a little too well, leaving Lucas completely stunned by his instant comeback. Their brief moment of relief is cut short by the sound of more uninvited guests. And realizing they are out of their league, Lucas decides it is time to cut her losses and retreat. Too bad for her. The new commander and his personal death squad have already arrived. This guy draws a high-tech blade that crackles with some seriously ominous blue energy, and Shin's eyes-enhanced senses immediately lock onto him as a major threat. Elsewhere, the river god explains that very sword was forged inside its own body for decades. A spirit-slaying blade designed to permanently erase beings like Shinsai's parasite. This weapon was then stolen and refined by another rogue spirit who vanished without a trace. This river god mocks the other spirits for foolishly serving its old traitorous subordinate. Its follower recalls that the parasite's new host is just some impulsive kid who will be dealt with soon enough. As she asks for guidance, the god senses that the legendary spirit-slaying blade is now in play. In a flashback, we see the new commander, Song Chun, who stole that very sword after betraying his master. His dying master could only watch, lamenting that the world's last hope was now gone. This memory shows the master downing his student for the ultimate act of betrayal. Back in the present, Shinsai faces this new enemy, demanding to know who the hell he is. Jang Chun just screams that he is here to kill him, bringing the glowing blade down with full force. But Shinsai dodges the overhead strike like it is standing still. This commander is completely floored by our boy's impossible speed. Giving Shinsai a perfect opening to counter with his own razor-sharp claws, he lands a brutal slash that Song Chun barely manages to block with his sword, and the sheer force of the blow sends the commander stumbling backward. Regaining his footing, he readies the spirit-slaying blade for another exchange, and the two of them erupt into a high-speed flurry of purple and blue energy. Jang Chun scoffs that Shinsai's fighting style is sloppy and full of holes like a wild animal. Our boy retorts that technique does not matter when you are just trying to end the fight quickly. He immediately follows up with a massive, sweeping claw attack, putting everything into it. This commander just smirks, spotting the exact opening he was waiting for in the reckless move. He instantly drops low, aiming a vicious slash right at Shinsai's exposed legs. This spirit-slaying blade connects, carving a nasty gash right across Shinsai's leg, and the blow sends our boy staggering back, completely caught off guard by the attack. He grits his teeth, realizing this is not just a normal wound. It feels different. While Song Chun wastes no time, raising his sword for a finishing blow. A massive wave of blue energy slams into him, sending him flying across the battlefield. Shinsai hits the ground hard, the armor around his leg completely shattered, and his opponent just smirks, clearly enjoying this one-sided beatdown a little too much. He gloats that since he cannot get the parasite, he will just settle for killing the host instead. Looking down, Shinsai sees the wound is not healing at all. It is festering with dark energy, and his parasite confirms his life force is draining away. He needs to end this fight. Now Jang Chun helpfully explains that his sword is designed to permanently erase spirits and their hosts. Shinsai absolutely loses it, screaming at his parasite for not mentioning this tiny, crucial detail earlier. Just then, his enhanced senses pick up on the other fight escalating nearby. Turns out Haley is getting swarmed by Song Chun's death squad, barely holding her own. While Lucas observes the new androids, sarcastically noting their perfect timing. With a grim look, she decides it is time to stop holding back and take them all down. She leaps into the fray, her own massive blade clashing against an android's armor, even taunting them that their main targets are the two aberrants standing right here. Despite his injury, Shinsai suddenly appears, intercepting a brutal blow meant for Haley, who asks if he is all right, though it is pretty obvious he is in seriously bad shape. Just then, another squad leader shows up, telling Lucas she is way out of her jurisdiction. He coldly states that since she is breaking the rules, he will just eliminate her along with the aberrants. This new guy draws his own sword, and it is glowing with that same ominous spirit-slaying energy. A sight that makes Lucas freeze, completely shocked that he possesses that specific weapon. She remembers that blade belonged to her master, who disappeared 5 years ago during a top-secret mission. Back with our boy, Haley's healing attempts are failing completely against the corrupted wound. Internally, Ninetales tells that this is no ordinary injury, and they will need another spirit's help to fix it. Lucas finally snaps, demanding to know how this traitor got his hands on the legendary sword. He just smirks, explaining her old fool of a master tried to stop a grand plan and was eliminated for it. This horrible truth dawned on her. This man is the one who murdered her mentor. She furiously calls him out as a fellow disciple, questioning why their master ever trained such a monster. With a chilling smile, he calls her senior sister, claiming his goals are the same as hers, which accidentally implies their master is still alive. A slip-up that clearly panics him. Forgetting the entire battle, Lucas grabs Shinsai, desperately asking if her master is okay and where she is. Our boy, still completely out of it, just mumbles that she's being a little too impulsive. This traitor flashes back to the moment he stabbed his master, unable to believe she could have survived. But Shinsai's parasite scoffs internally, confirming that someone with her power would not die so easily. Fueled by this new hope, Shinsai gets back on his feet, calling the commander scum for betraying his own. His eyes glow with renewed power as he channels his energy, ready to fight despite the injury, and he lets out a furious roar as the dark power from the wound surges through his body. Haley rushes to Shinsai's side, seeing the dark energy practically consuming him, and his wound is not just bleeding, it is gushing out pure corrupted life force. Our boy can barely stay upright. The pain from the spirit-slaying blade is absolutely unreal, while Song Chun just loves it, gloating that the deeper the cut, the closer he is to death. Haley desperately tries to heal him, but the cursed energy from the wound just pushes her away. Seeing his chance, the traitorous commander orders his squad to finish them off while they are distracted. A whole team of android assassins descends on them, blades at the ready. And these guys are not messing around. their weapons humming with lethal intent. Lucas immediately leaps into action, intercepting one of the goons with a brutal kick to the face. Unfortunately for her, for everyone she takes down, 2 more drop from the sky to replace them. She is now stuck fending off multiple attackers while Haley shields the still recovering Chinsai, landing on her feet. Lucas braces herself for the next wave of cannon fodder. She is absolutely furious, realizing they have been completely cornered by this traitorous snake. This entire death squad now has them surrounded on the rocky terrain, leaving no room to escape. Lucas shouts that she is doing her best, but they need to move before they are totally overwhelmed. She channels some of her own energy into Chinsai, giving him a temporary boost to get him moving. With that done, she immediately gets back to business, demanding to know where her master is. After a tense moment, she reluctantly agrees to help them, but only because she needs him alive. Just then, an android breaks through their defense, swinging its sword right at Chinsai's head. But he is already moving, blocking the strike, and proving he has still got plenty of fight left in him. This pain from the cursed wound is gone. But Chinsai is still leaking life force like a sieve. He lets out a feral roar, deciding if he is going down, he is taking everyone with him. Lucas is already back in the fight, parrying a strike from one of the android goons, and the 3 of them stand their ground, ready for the next wave of attacks. It is a pretty grim picture with the entire death squad closing in from all sides. This traitorous commander smirks, absolutely certain they are too exhausted to put up a real fight. So Chinsai cooks up a plan to lure the big boss away, while the girls handle the cannon fodder. He promises to meet them later at an old clock tower, giving them a confident grin. But Lucas's ever the pragmatist immediately calls it the worst plan she has ever heard. Too bad the traitor is not waiting for a debate, charging in with his glowing spirit-slaying blade, forcing Chinsai to shove both Haley and Lucas out of the path of the deadly strike. He meets the commander's blade head-on, a massive explosion of energy erupting between them, and the sheer force of their clash rips the very ground apart. This commander just orders his androids to swarm our boy, try and pin him down. This fight is tearing the entire port city to absolute shreds. By the way, Chinsai is now stuck playing keep away with the androids, trying to buy the girl some time. While Lucas and Haley carve their own path through the mechanical army, he grits his teeth, realizing the cursed wound is slowing him down way too much. They need to go asterisk. Now asterisk. With a burst of speed, he makes a mad dash for it, leading the chase away from his allies. But an android immediately intercepts him, blocking his escape with a perfectly timed strike. Chinsai digs his claws into the ground, his escape route completely blocked by the android. He is immediately thrown into a high-speed clash, deflecting a dozen strikes at once. From a distance, Lucas shouts advice about using his speed, but he cannot find an opening. This traitorous commander tells her to shut up, charging back into the fray with his own blade, forcing Chinsai to parry another brutal swing from the spirit-slaying sword. Meanwhile, Haley and her friend are getting overwhelmed, warning each other about the android's insane mobility. One of the hooded machines gets the drop on Haley's companion, grabbing her from behind, only to get its head completely caved in by a lightning-fast strike. Lucas leads the way, telling the others to follow her as they finally make a break for it. Song-chan is visibly annoyed they're getting away, but Chinsai just smirks, his plan working perfectly. This commander finally realizes this whole drawn-out fight was just a diversion. Chinsai smugly confirms he was just keeping the big boss occupied so his friends could slip out. As they flee, Lucas asks if the healer's powers are back online, but she is still totally drained. They're just about to reach a getaway vehicle when an android takes aim from the rooftops. Jang Chun just scoffs, pretty confident their little escape is about to hit a wall. He casually taps a device on his wrist, activating his little surprise. And on cue, the androids unleash a coordinated volley of energy blasts into the sky. A massive energy net materializes out of thin air, shocking Lucas as it closes in. These girls are caught suspended helplessly in the air with nowhere to run. Song-chan taunts Chinsai, asking if he really thought his little squad could outrun a high-tech army. Just as they are trapped, an android grabs Chinsai from behind, its eyes glowing ominously, and Song-chan smirks, gloating that there is absolutely nowhere left for them to run now. This traitorous commander gets a status report that the targets are captured, awaiting his final order. Chinsai starts to panic, struggling against the machine's iron grip, while the commander just smiles, about to give the command to eliminate them both when Lucas suddenly crashes the party, delivering a flying kick right into the android side. This traitor barely dodges, shocked by the sheer weight behind her attack as the machine goes flying. That single kick was enough to completely shatter the android's reinforced armor plating. With his captor gone, Chinsai immediately lunges for the commander, grabbing him from behind. He then slams the guy head first into the ground, creating a massive impact crater. This commander is completely stunned, not expecting that kind of raw power from an injured kid. Before he can recover, Chinsai smashes him into the side of the cliff, pinning him down with one hand while his claws dig into the man's uniform. Our boy is absolutely feral, letting out a furious roar with his eyes glowing purple. He screams right in the commander's face, who is now looking genuinely terrified. A brutal punch lands square in the traitor's gut, the impact echoing across the battlefield. This commander coughs up blood, clearly taking some serious internal damage from the blow. Not letting up for a second, Chinsai forms a blade of pure energy around his arm, unleashing a lightning-fast flurry of slashes that are too quick to even see. A final powerful swipe sends the commander flying, ending the one-sided beatdown decisively. This commander is completely losing it. Absolutely terrified of the kid he was just gloating over. Chinsai gets right in his face, mocking him for being useless without his fancy sword's special range. Internally, Ninetales is screaming that their life force is almost gone and willpower is the only thing keeping him up. Our boy unleashes a final desperate burst of power, a blinding flash that engulfs the entire area. And when the light fades, Song-chun realizes the kid and his parasite are sharing a life linked to survive. Meanwhile, Lucas and Haley are tied to a post with Lucas putting a whole lot of faith in their dying friend. Just then, a storm of golden energy blasts tears through the battlefield, aimed right at the android guards, and the machines do not even have time to react before they are getting completely vaporized by the attack. A new fighter zips across the scene, moving too fast for anyone to get a clear look at him. Turns out it is some red-haired guy in sleek armor waft in his own powerful golden flames. He immediately gets to work dismantling the remaining androids with a flurry of high-speed strikes. One of the goons gets launched into the air by a devastating kick from our mysterious newcomer. With the first wave down, he stands ready, his golden aura flaring up for the next round. Another blast of fire clears the field, leaving a path straight to the captured girls. Nobody knows who this guy is, and Song-chun wonders if another commander just crashed his party. Haley's friend is panicking, absolutely convinced this new flame user is about to turn her into barbecue. A strange voice tells her to use her bewitching fluid to smoke him out, and a purple mist appears. Luca, still tied up, immediately recognizes.